Your food.
And all the teams. We're also here to honor the legacy of Community Coalition for Environmental Justice, CCEJ. And so today, it's really about celebrating and really looking at, what lessons learned, but also, getting excited for the future as well. I want to thank all the teams who participated in GreenAthon, and you'll hear the results shortly. I also want to honor all the Earth defenders, all the organizers, all the folks who have been fighting years and years for environmental justice for generations, for decades, and really wanting to also honor the original people of this land, the Duwamish, right? They're the original stewards of this land, the original environmental defenders, right? And we're just visitors here. This is their land, and GotGreen wholeheartedly supports their sovereignty, their rights to this land. So that's something I just want to put there, that we're just visitors here, and this is the land of the Duwamish and Coast Salish Sea. Thank you. And also want to honor our founder, Michael Wu. Where are you at, Michael Wu? Thank you for this gift. Thank you for this organization. Yeah, and so if I could get a little bit of a drum roll, please. So we had a goal of $90,000 to raise for GreenAthon, and we made it. We didn't just make that goal, we also smashed it. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we raised $130,000. That fundraising power, that's to go towards community organizing, towards building power in our communities, and ensure that our communities are rooted in place, that we're going to have a healthy environment, access to healthy food, healthy green jobs for everyone. And so thank you everyone for your hard work. This party's for you. This celebration is for you. Also want to honor our sponsors, our many sponsors. I'm just going to go through the long list. CCEJ alumni. These are the teams and sponsors, excuse me. The Climate Avengers, Food Access Team, Team Jill and Manu, Team Lily and Friends, 350 Ways to Love GotGreen, Seekers of Justice Transition, Climate Activists Really Work It, Food Justice Fighters, Earth Corps and Friends, Shapers Seattle, Greenpeace Seattle. CCEJ was founded 25 years ago. Again, we wouldn't be here if groups like CCEJ weren't fighting hard for our environment and our communities. I want to bring up Yolanda Sinde up to the stage, the former director of CCEJ, to start us off with the sharing and honoring of their legacy.
For some of the folks that might be a little embarrassed about some of the slides, just keep in mind this is 1994, about 2006, so a little different hairstyles, different styles, so don't try too hard. I went through a couple of hairstyle phases that you'll notice too, and I didn't have this is the slides that I chose. So CCEJ, we're each going to tell stories, and I'm just going to start with how I got involved. I got a knock on my door around 1993 from, I don't remember who it was, inviting me to a meeting at Douglas Truth Library. And I was always considered myself someone concerned about the environment, had grown up with country grandparents that took me out, and we grew food, and went to the South every summer. Back then, your parents sent you down south for the summer for a reality check. And so that's what I did every summer, and I worked on the farm with my grandparents. And so to me, it taught me environmental stewardship, so I always considered myself an environmentalist. So I was like, yeah, I'll go, look at that up there. Oh my goodness, okay. I didn't know that was going to be there. That was a different phase of my life. So we'll just move past that. So I went to the meeting and was amazed that there were people like me that cared about the environment. And so I said, I finally found my people. And so I was hooked from that day on, went to meetings, was on the founding board that helped get the nonprofit status, and then served as an organizer for the first 3 years. And I remember my first organizing job was in South Park, and we were fighting Long Painting Company, and people told us you'll never get people of color to care about the environment. And I'm so happy to say, to prove all those people wrong, because not only did CCJ win and stop Long Painting Company, not only did we win and stop the VA hospital from emitting toxic medical waste on the VA hospital, we mobilized the largest people of color-led environmental justice network in the Pacific Northwest. And so these are some of the highlights of some of our work. So I'm really proud of the legacy, but it wasn't just me, it was a lot of people. I was there for 13 years and served 10 years as the ED, 3 as an organizer, and still a supporter, and so happy and can't wait for you all to hear about the story of how GotGreen is the evolution of Community Coalition for Environmental Justice. But we would not be here if it wasn't for the people that are native to this land, the Duwamish. And Cecile Hansen, who is one of the mothers of that tribe, has always been a mentor of mine, and she told me I could do this. I'll never forget that, when I was doubting whether we could really build this. We were in a very white-led environmental community, and people were like, here, people of color are too busy, they're not going to have time. Proved them wrong. So the moral of the story is, don't listen to anybody telling you you can't do something. You know, our communities care about the environment too, and so we prove that. So thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Maria Batiola, and we're going to roll back a little bit. Lisa might be or might not be here. So her story even starts 2 years before the story that I'm going to tell, which is before Yolanda's tenure. So I don't know if you guys remember Deshaun Jansen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm her best bud, and she's my mentor to mentor. So part of that is when she's very passionate. She's very passionate about the environment, and she would always grab me to do some service for the environment. So back then I was doing a lot of facilitation. So it started out with EPA, and if you guys know Running Grass, please give him a thank you, because he's the inside man, inside person who opened doors but had to stay within the rules. And EPA is under attack right now, so we've got to really keep up. But anyway, Running Grass and Tushan, there was some discussion, and I was pulled in to facilitate conflict between what they call the Greens, right, the traditional environmentalists, the Browns, who were the engineers, and the Rainbow, us. And so from that, there was a conference on environmental justice that was put together. And Tushan and quite a number of other people wanted the ability to organize during the conference, and they were not allowed to. But they said, out of that conference, you can ask people, are they interested in doing environmental justice? Because back then, the concept of EJ was kind of unique. People usually say, okay, I get it about the environment. They think of water, air, land, trees, so on. The natural environment, they don't think about the built environment, which is what influences people of color. So, so that was the distinction back then. And so, out of that conference, out of that conversation, there was a gathering of 40 people, and Yolanda came, and that is when the group decided, yes, let's do Community Coalition for Environmental Justice. That was in 1993. To deal with environmental racism. And the mission was to achieve environmental justice and economic justice in low-income communities and people of color communities through organizing, education, direct action, political advocacy, and coalition building. So what was really incredible is there's a list somewhere of the accomplishments of the group. And as in any organization, my job was to doula and to do health checks. So when there were, Jonathan is our longtime treasurer. So when there's financial issues, I come in and say, okay, what's happening? And we get ourselves redirected. And then the last cycle really was realizing that there was not as much energy anymore at CCEJ, and there was this wonderful grassroots thing that's happening with GotGreen. Same philosophy, and we were looking to say, we have some assets, we need to transfer these assets. We have a wonderful curriculum, we have some talented people like Alice, and we have a 501c3. And so we did secret negotiations, and thank you to Kristen Joy, to Jill, and we were able to do that transfer. So we're so grateful, I'm so grateful that the work continues, and many of us keep recycling in and out. So maybe our CCEJ folks, can you stand up and wave so everybody gets the chance to see you? So I'm going to turn it over to Alice, who wound up joining the board of GotGreen. And
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Alice Park, and I get to span the whole lifespan of CCEJ. So I started as a volunteer for CCEJ, I think in 1998. Somewhat new to moving to Seattle from Los Angeles and realizing like how white Seattle was. And my classmate, Christine Wong, was the organizer for CCEJ, was like, oh, I think you need to spend some time with CCEJ, which I did, and I found my family and my home. So I credit Yolanda, she is my mentor, who just like helped me really see how like everything worked in this world. I watched her mentor just every year, young people, and be like, oh, that's how the world works. Like, oh, yeah, we do actually get a say in what's happening in our lives and in our communities. So anyhow, I just love every time when I can see Wanda gets to touch other people in the building. So anyhow, like forever, I'm grateful to Yolanda, my mentor. I volunteered with CCJ, loved it so much, joined the board, and then went with Maria, who was just absolutely critical in this kind of transfer to GotGreen. And as we did this transition of the 501c3 from CCJ to GotGreen, I will really just kind of fell in love with GotGreen, knowing that they had done some work and we had crossed paths in our, doing our work at CCJ, knowing they were aligned in our values, but like the intention, like the very intentionality, the thought process that they took as they considered like what would that mean to take over from 501c3, we need to talk to each of our spheres, we had like just, they were so intentional, I was so impressed by it. So once that whole transfer was finished, and I think maybe about a year or so later when they were starting to recruit for their board, I'm like, I'd like to be on the board. So I'm now on the board for GotGreen. And what I think is, what is really neat to see is like after you kind of went through that whole thing, that whole thought process of those of us, so if we did the transition, we're like, what do we do? Do we just let this go? Do we try this transition? Is to know like on the receiving end, like, boy, did we make the right decision. Boy, didn't do the right thing. It was exactly what was needed for the community to kind of invigorate the movement and to really hold and keep true to the values that CCJ always like growing our young leaders, making sure that we know that people from the community get a say in what's happening in our environment, in our community, and really creating strong climate justice activists. So it's really nice to kind of have spanned that entire time, and I still have my family with GotGreen, so here I remain.
So I'm going to close by asking other CCJers if they want to come up and say a few words. We still have some time for a couple minutes, but I want to do a moment of silence for a few people who've passed on that are no longer with us, that were a big part of CCJ. Tishon Johnson, Larry Montgomery, Hazel Wolf, and Vanessa Sarita. No people remember her? Virginia Sarita, sorry. If we could just have a moment of silence for them. Used to help me when I was fighting Seattle Public Schools about my son. And she would come and be a witness when I would fight them. So I'm forever grateful to her, and he is too.
Thanks, Yolanda. And I've been sitting and thinking, what story will I tell about CCEJ? And it comes back to me that I remember writing up the bylaws, which was a really difficult process because the group at that time was white people and people of color. And I'm sorry to say that my friends, the white people, were not so very advanced. And so, so I'm glad that we have such good friends now. But one of the things that comes to mind for me is that I made a real strong pitch for there to be 2/3 people of color and or poor people on the board. And I think that made a difficult situation for the CCEJ board from that time on, but I think that it was the right decision to make. So I'm glad that CCEJ still exists. I'm glad that it has evolved into GotGreen. And when I had a problem with my building being sold to a developer, GotGreen was there on the scene, and they were organizing, and they made a big stink about my building being sold. So GotGreen has great potential, and it's a great organization, and thank you very much for being here.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. That's how it's happened. Okay. Anybody else from CCEJ would like to come say a few words, share memory? Okay. All right, all right, Jonathan.
Just people of European descent were mentioned. I thought I'd better say something. Yeah, my parents were refugees, so pretty recent immigrants to this land, so of course we always honor the indigenous folks who were here before us too. It was always so inspiring working with CCEJ. Even though I had to really lean on myself to hold back and not ever try to be a leader. It would always be somebody who's working for the cause with the people who are leading it. And that experience served me really well later on. In fact, it's still serving me today. I'm on the board of the Nakani Native Program, which is continuing the American Friends Service Committee's Indian work. That was also on that board. And it's largely the same role, but I learned it working with Yolanda. It was great. So I owe you a lot here.
Well, we're going to close unless anyone else wants to speak and hand it over to Jill for the next part of the event. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give everyone a round of applause. Hello. Again, big thank you to CCEJ. I remember the first time we went through the environmental justice curriculum, the 101, at a retreat, and folks are blown away. They're like, what is possible, right? We can shut down incinerators, we can advocate for our communities to have healthy air, to fight gentrification. It was wild for me to think about, like, the same issues we're looking at today are the same issues that you all were struggling with. And sometimes when we say, like, gentrification is an environmental justice issue, and mainstream environmentalism is like, how is that possible? We're like, no, it truly is. Look at years and years of people fighting to be rooted in place, to be home, to be belonging in their community. It's the same struggles here on, and I'm hopeful that we can work together and learn from y'all. We're hoping to revive the toxic tours, to continue this intergenerational movement. And yeah, today is about celebrating your work and also looking forward. What can we do together? What kind of power we can build? So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but please just enjoy. The rest of the time is a party. We're going to play some music, get to know each other. There's also reports in the back, a room over there that CCEJ has lent. Please don't take them home, but you can look at them. They're artifacts. This is a time of their struggle, and that struggle continues today. So we're here till 9 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, and continue to build community together. All right, good night.